Hello everyone and welcome to the Tacticians Crown Regional Breakdown. This is the EMEA edition featuring Counterfeit. Counter, thank you for joining me. I'm so excited to not just be joined by you here, but on alternative broadcasts this weekend.
Yeah, it's going to be a wild time, especially as we've really looking into, we're going to be having a lot of different changes up as time goes on. So looking forward to being with you for day one, and hopefully you'll have a fun time on day two as we part ways and join up with other casters from all across the planet as well.
Yeah, it is going to be great. And speaking of the whole planet, this is a world championship, Tacticians Crown. There's people from all over the world that are competing. So today in this little interview, while we cover some of the EMEA players, we're also going to talk about the region as a whole. You casted their regional finals, and then we're going to really get into some of the players and your expectations for them. Sound good?
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. Let's do it. So first and foremost, what do you think is unique about EMEA as a region, and how do you think it's going to stack up against other regions this year?
All right, Sealy. So if I asked you which region across all the competitive TFT had the most dominant top 4 showing at a global championship, you'd probably assume China. That's not unreasonable to think, but it's also not correct. If we go all the way back to the first championship of 2020, Galaxies, not only did EMEA's Double61 win the entire thing, but Levji Trotsky in second and Volta in fourth. That's the most dominant showing any region has ever put on a championship, and it happened at the very first one. Am I saying that EMEA is coasting on all victories? You're damn right I am, CLE. We haven't had an EMEA champion since 2020. But you remember Double, Volta, the ones who were there at the very start. Why, CLE? They're back here again at this championship, still competing for EMEA.
I mean, we are living in the past a little bit, but, you know, we got to cling on to something, right? As we look forward, hoping that we can capture that energy once again. I didn't even know that. That's a fantastic showing by EMEA, and so that is awesome. But since the beginning, right, when you're talking about set 3 Galaxies, how do you feel like your region has evolved since then in the recent sets?
Well, I mean, the big part I was kind of leaving out of that story there is that EMEA dropped out of the top 8 for a couple of sets entirely. But Enzo brought us back there, and since that happened in a Monster Attack, EMEA has not only managed to maintain players good enough to make top 8 continuously, but EMEA players have been top 2 in the majority of the recent championships. And if I may expand on why, CLE, because I'm going to keep on talking, I think it's because of incredible continuity players like Double and Volta.
Yeah.
We've got developing talent as well. Our last 2 regional champions in Kibix and Gobista, they're both players who are kind of like trying to move forward and establish themselves on a much bigger level. And I think they've realized that kind of potential because this is such a veteran-rich environment. You kind of learn from all these people who've been there before, who've been to multiple championships, and they bring out the best in these new players coming in and show us that, well, we've got a great field of established players. We've also got very, very good players rising up the ranks as well.
Absolutely. And let's talk a little bit about those players. But there's 9 players going from EMEA, and I know some of them are not necessarily favorites going into the tournament. Who are some of these underdogs that we should be looking out for to make a run?
I'll ask you to reverse that statement, CLE. That's scandalous, slanderous. Every player from here is going to be in the top 9.
Oh,
but
yes.
If you push me to say which ones have got the most room to grow, then I would probably say Stinky Abuser, Org, and Darkest. They are not the only members of the EMEA crew who haven't been to Championship before, but I think they're the ones with the most to prove. I will highlight Org, though, from being one of those players that I'm really excited to see play, because at the last cup of the season, he put the most dominant day 3 anybody in the history of EMEA has ever done. At any cup, at any regionals, he pulled off in the last couple of the season. So if he can do anything remotely like that at Championship, I would remove him quite firmly from the underdog category.
Absolutely. He's definitely somebody on my radar. I remember seeing him in that Tacticians Cup 3, and it was just like he won before it was even Game 6, right? It was some craziness. So those are some of those people that have some room to grow, but who would you say has the strongest chance of making it deep into the tournament? And I think I know your answer because it's a common answer, but go ahead.
Well, I mean, I'm gonna be obvious here because I think it merits it. I think it's really a toss-up between Double61 and Volta. They both got recent top eights at the highest level. Admittedly, Double's a little bit better, but with more recent, across this most recent season, they've both been doing really well. Volta in particular was destroying it in regionals, even getting ahead of Double. So I think, if I'm going to be bold here, CLE, and based on my hairline, it's not too long till I am. I think I want to say here that I actually think the Double61 and Volta top 4 at Galaxies, I'm going to go on a limb here and say they're going to top 4 together again.
I think that is a very valid claim by obviously a homer take, but it's, that's what we're here for. You are the EMEA expert and you're going to continue to cheer them on. But how does your region view the other regions? Are there ones that you guys look at, you're like, yeah, these guys are kind of a threat. We really wouldn't want to be in the first lobby with them?
Well, I think everyone's very aware that the Chinese players are going to be one of the biggest threats in the tournament. Because consistently, we've got multiple Chinese players in the top 8. Inkborn Tacticians Crown, 3 players. Remix Rumble, 3 players. Ruterra Reforged, 3 players. At this point, I'm more astonished that we haven't had, a Chinese set champion for as long as we have had, been waiting for that to happen again. So I think they're definitely the big threat, just by sheer volume of numbers and quality together. And of course, China has been for a very long time the region that people look to for inspiration. I think maybe that started to shift a little bit, but still, I think, you'd be crazy to not think that China's got a very, very good chance of getting back to championship again. Of course, if you remember championships past, there was, I believe, a 3 championship run where Chinese players were winning it one after another. So it's always on the horizon that that's going to just happen again.
Yeah, they've consistently reached that final lobby with multiple people. They've had 3 in the finals in the last few sets, I believe, definitely the last 2. And so they're definitely going to make a run at that. I noticed you didn't say you were scared of the Americas. What's up with that, Counter?
Well, okay, I'm basing this a little bit on what I've heard coming from American casters and streamers. But to be fair, America's holding the set championship for 3 out of the last 4 championships, I think is an incredibly impressive thing. I think it's, when you compare it to the Chinese sort of level of domination before, it's maybe not quite as extreme just because it's tended to be, the one standout player really, blowing everything up. Milala standing out, of course, Dishsoap being our reigning global champion as well. I think that there's more of a connection now between EMEA and NA than perhaps there was before. You see a lot of EMEA players playing on the NA ladders and North American tournaments, so of course not the cups, but I think, in terms of the approach and things, are pretty similar. I do like that some new faces coming in from the American side of things. You got long-term people like Milk and Robin Songs, but got some new people coming in there as well. I think for me, that's what makes me less confident about the American side of things, just because while there's, there is veteran talent in there, a lot of that veteran talent hasn't necessarily been fully contending for the championship before, with the exception, of course, of Dish Soap. And the newer players coming in don't have a lot of experience behind them, so they could be amazing, but I'm not going to assume that they are at this point.
And I think that's what specifically the EMEA top 2 that you've been laying out for us, Double61 and Volta, they have the most experience, nearly, if not the most. I think there's a couple other people that are up there with them. And so that experience obviously is going to pay dividends this weekend. And so I'm excited to watch EMEA and see where that goes out. Obviously, there's always the EU versus NA rivalry that will be always fun to watch. And so I'm thankful for your time in laying this out for us.
Well, CLE, just a couple of things before I go.
Sure.
Firstly, I don't want to ignore APAC here because I'm going to get beaten up by Makes if I do. I think it's worth remembering the title is coming back as part of the APAC crew. And of course, I think all of us are trying to recover from his championship victory where he just rushed on the championship and won it as soon as was humanly possible. But there's players from Vietnam, Korean players doing really well in the previous championship. OS players as well, of course, just lucky outside the top 8. So I think APAC is, if we're going to have something of a wild card region, I think it would be them, though I would be very surprised if nobody from APAC, I'd say maybe 2 or 3 APAC players potentially getting through to top 8 again this time.
Yeah, they're very interesting because they're not super easy to watch like some of these other regions are. I mean, China also is a little bit more difficult to watch. And so, especially over here in the Western regions, sometimes those are just not in our face as much. And so we are looking forward to watching them on the international stage. Counter, anything else that makes is going to beat you up for if you don't say?
So many things. But if I may give some final thoughts, I'd like to quote a wise man, myself, from the regional championship with the kind of the final word here on EMEA. As I said, I'm optimistic about EMEA's chance of the crown. We got second place in Runeterra Forge, second place at Inkborn Fables. How long until EMEA has a global champion? Personally, I think it's only a matter of seconds.
TikTok, time is coming, and we will find out this weekend who will win the Tactician's crown. Counter, thank you for joining me. I'm so excited to continue to break down these regions and build up some hype before we get to the championship this weekend, and it is going to be an awesome one. So Counter, thank you so much. I appreciate you all for watching.